Hey, how's it going YouTube? This is Devin with PubStomp MTG, and in this video today, I'm going to be discussing Evereth, Viceroy of Plunder. And this looks like a pretty interesting commander. Of course, all you waifu nerds out there will love this card. This is from the new Jumpstart Foundation set, which looks pretty awesome, by the way. There's a lot of cool spoilers from there, so definitely go check it out. But let's read what this commander does. So for 2 and a black legendary creature, Vampire Soldier, it does have flying, and it does have the ability to sacrifice another creature or artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Evereth, Viceroy of Plunder. If the sacrifice permanent was a treasure, Evereth gains lifelink until end of turn, activate only as a sorcery. When Evereth dies, you may pay 1 and a hybrid Rakdos color combination. When you do, Evereth deals damage equal to its power to each opponent, and she does have a 2/2 body. So this commander in a way reminds me of Jury, Master of the Revu, but obviously there are some differences. This is a sacrifice outlet in the command zone that you can sacrifice artifacts or creatures, and you don't have to tap her or pay a mana ability into it. All you have to do is just sacrifice a permanent that's a creature or artifact, and you're good to go. All the while, Jury does have the ability whenever you sacrifice a permanent, so it's not a sacrifice outlet itself. They deal damage based off of the power. Jury is just to a single target, where this commander focuses on damaging everybody, which is a little bit more powerful in my opinion, and worth the extra mana. So this will be built a similar way to a Jury deck. Obviously, you want to have a sacrifice outlet to sacrifice Evereth, just in case if you want to go for that big explosive play of dealing damage to a lot of people. Also, what's very cool about Evereth is the fact that when you sacrifice a treasure token, Evereth does gain lifelink until end of turn, so that does work hand in hand with that second ability, because Evereth does have lifelink, and when she does die and you pay into that mana cost, she will deal damage equal to its power to each opponent. So let's just say Evereth was a 5/5 on the battlefield, you give it lifelink, and you sacrifice it, pay into that mana cost, she will deal 5 damage to each opponent, and you gain 15 life. So that is pretty enticing for a commander, so let's dive into some cards that you should put in the deck. So let's first discuss Sacrifice Father. There's so many different options that you could take advantage of in this deck. One of my personal favorites is Impulsive Pilferer. For 1 mana, when it does die, you create a treasure token that works hand in hand with our commander, because we could sacrifice Impulsive Pilferer, put a 1/1 counter on it, then sacrifice the treasure token, give it lifelink and a 1/1 counter, and plus we could use that Encore ability and make 3 Impulsive Pilferers, sacrifice those to our commander, and make 3 treasure tokens and sacrifice those on top of that. So this one synergizes heavily with our commander, definitely one you should include. Another fun addition I feel like is very underrated in Commander is Lagomos, Hand of Hatred. I love this card ever since it was spoiled in Dominaria. This has the ability at the beginning of combat on your turn, you create a 2/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste, sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. Well, that's okay because we could sacrifice it with our commander later on after combat. Plus on top of that, if 5 or more creatures died this turn, you get to search your library for a card and put it into your hand with that tap ability. So this is a perfect card too, definitely one I would highly recommend. I would also highly recommend some cards that could essentially just put themselves back on the battlefield, for example Reassembling Skeleton and Forsaken Miner. Both of these are great because Forsaken Miner, when you commit a crime, you may pay a black mana, return it back to the battlefield. You're going to be committing crimes so much in this deck, it's going to be very easy to do so and put it back on the battlefield to sacrifice it for later. The same can be said for Reassembling Skeleton. If you do have the mana, you could just put it back on the battlefield, sacrifice or repeat the process, make your commander infinitely large. I wouldn't say infinitely large, but pretty big. But I would dive into the treasure theme a little bit more than putting Sacrifice Fodder out on the battlefield, because you can sacrifice artifacts or creatures. Artifacts are very easy to do, especially when they're treasure tokens. So using a card like Pitiless Plunderer, whenever another creature you control dies, create a treasure token. That's simple enough. We're going to be sacrificing creatures, making those treasure tokens, and then sacrificing those treasure tokens to our commander. It's a win-win for us. I also like Warren Soul Trader in this deck because 1, you could sacrifice your commander with that ability and make a treasure token to help pay for that cost of that 1 Rakdos color hybrid and that 1 mana. And another great reason to run Warren Soul Trader is the fact that you are making treasure tokens that you can sacrifice later with your commander to give your commander lifelink. Next card that synergizes pretty well with our commander is Feign the Broker. For 2 and a black, you could sacrifice a creature, put up 2 1/1 counters on target creature like our commander. You can also remove a counter from a target creature you control. You create a treasure token that works well with our commander because we want to make treasure to sacrifice to give it lifelink. In that last tap ability, you could sacrifice an artifact, create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. So just in case if we have some clues or some food on the battlefield, because because we do have some other cards that generate that. We can replace those with creatures that we could sacrifice with our commander, and most importantly, we can untap them by paying 3 and a black. So this synergizes because we can remove counters from our commander to make those treasure tokens to give it lifelink and get that 1/1 counter on it too. So to me, this is just one great toolbox card that you could add into any deck that really synergizes with sacrificing, and it will do wonders for you. But I would say one of the best treasure generators for you is Ruthless Technomancer, because when it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature you control. If you do create a number of treasure tokens equal to that creature's power, plus you can pay 2 and a black, sacrifice X artifacts, return target creature card with power X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. X can't be 0. So this is pretty disgusting. Depending on how big your commander is, the more you're going to get treasure tokens, and you could pay into that cost to deal damage to each opponent. Plus, most likely, you'll have enough treasure to cast your commander over again, and then sacrifice all those treasure tokens. I did previously mention that we could get clue and food artifacts on the battlefield, and the one way we could do that is by using Academy Manufacturer. This is incredible in the deck, because most likely we're going to be creating a ton of treasure tokens, and instead of one of those things, we'll make all 3 of those things each time, because we will be making clue, food, and treasure tokens instead of just creating one of those. And the nice thing about our commander is we can sacrifice another creature or artifact. It doesn't say another creature or treasure token, so any artifact on the battlefield that does include our food and clue tokens. We just get that extra benefit when we sacrifice a treasure, we get lifelink. But either way, I think this is going to be a great include because we could sacrifice those things, make Evereth infinitely larger than just making treasure tokens, and potentially sacrifice her later for victory. But since we are sacrificing stuff, we might as well get additional benefits off of sacrifice value. For example, Mirkwood Bats is incredible because whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. So when we're making those treasure tokens or sacrificing them, our opponents are going to lose a ton of life. The same can be said for Marionette Apprentice. This one has the ability whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. Plus you can make a servo token on the battlefield with that Fabricate ability. So this will absolutely drain our opponents for a ton. Another option that I thought of was Mayhem Devil. This is a classic in any sacrifice build because whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, any player on the battlefield that does include your opponents, Mayhem Devil will deal 1 damage to any target. So if somebody has a mana dork on the battlefield, we'll say goodbye to that. Or if you want to deal damage to someone's face, easily could do that too. You could also use some other Blood Artist effects, but obviously those can be great includes if you're focusing more on creature builds. I am focusing more on a treasure build, even though there are some creatures you can sacrifice. But if you want to win the game in a big and explosive way, and if your commander is very huge, I would recommend some Fling effects because Fling is one of my favorite ways to win the game. So of course you can use Fling because as an additional cost to cast a spell, you sacrifice a creature. Fling deals damage equal to its sacrificed creature's power to any target. So this works perfectly with our commander because if somebody has a lot more life than the other 2 opponents, you could Fling Evereth to that player. And on top of that, you could pay that ability of Evereth when she does die to deal damage to each player equal to her power. So if you have that one opponent that's a big fan of waifus, well, hey, here's his chance. We could fling over Evereth to him, but then die in the process. There are a decent amount of fling effects that you can take advantage of. For example, Kazul's Fury is a great option because it could be used as a land on the backside. Heart Piercer Manticore is an amazing art piece, but it essentially has that ability when it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice another creature. When you do, it deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, so very similar to a fling effect, obviously. A similar card is Voldaren Thrill Seeker. It has the backup ability. When this creature enters the battlefield, you put 2 1/1 counters on target creature. If that's another creature, it gains the following ability until end of turn. So you can pay 1, sacrifice this creature, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. But you don't want just one-time effects, so that's why I absolutely like Surtland Flinger, because when it attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, it deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. And we don't have to worry about the giant part. We're mainly focusing on that second part of sacrificing a creature and dealing damage equal to its power, because we can deal damage, and on top of that, deal damage even more when we pay into that second ability of our commander. So I would say using fling effects would probably be one of the fun ways of using this commander. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways. That's just my suggestion personally. But that is going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video. I do believe Evereth is going to be a very fun commander. Definitely one that's going to probably replace Jury if I'm going to be real. Not just because of the waifu art, because a lot of people do gravitate towards that, but just the fact that it can gain lifelink is pretty powerful. Plus, it does have flying, so if anything else, you could just Voltron out Evereth and deal a lot of damage by combat. But I would love to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts and opinions about Evereth? Do you plan on building it yourself? Also, if you want to support the channel a little bit further, I do have a Patreon down below in the description if you do want to go check it out. But if not, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.